Well, greetings and salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to 3 Peas in a Pod, episode 271.
We made it.
Yes, we did. And last week was as I called it, a clarifying episode.
Yeah.
This week is what do you call it, a bonus or in addition to episode, some stuff that we're talking about on Sunday.
Yeah.
So we've been in a series recently where what we're trying to do is help people see what does it look like to follow Jesus in the particulars of your life.
Right.
And then just a while ago, Nathan brought something up that he said, you know what, I wonder if people have thought or need some guidance in some certain areas of particulars where we're following Jesus.
Right.
And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Set us up, Nathan.
Well, I think one of the things, and kind of my hope with this series to try and get people to begin to do is, I think, for a long time we've talked in our church about, trust and obedience in God and all of these different things. And I think sometimes what people think that means is, I got to do whatever God says in everything, which is true. Except there's a lot of things God did not just directly tell me what to do. And so what then I think happens is there are things God told me to do and I need to be careful to do those things. Good. A+ on that. Then there's things God said nothing about. I can just kind of do whatever I feel like I need to do on those things. And there is no bridge of connection between maybe the areas where God did say stuff about. I got to be thoughtful about every part of my life, because what we're trying to learn to do is to be people who interact with God, and in particular with a holy God, with a God who is distinct in the way he interacts in the world. And part of the way I interact with him is interacting like he does. So we said at the end of the series we did on, the covenant that God made with Israel, we went through Micah 6:8, where he says, what does God require of you? Act justly, love mercy, walk humbly with God. And part of that, there was this little kind of aside I said, but I could see people's eyes light up when I talked about part of acting justly is me starting to consider with every task that's on my schedule, not just the things I think are important. Every task I'm given to do, there is a way God intends for this to be for my good, for someone else's good, for the good of the world. And so if I can learn to approach those tasks and not mechanically as I can't do the task until God gives me the exact word, but in a thoughtful approach of how do I approach this thing, right? When I'm doing my taxes, when I'm doing X, Y, Z, how do I approach that in a way that...
What? Taxes?
that promotes the way God intends the world to go. And what I said was, and you can do that whether you're bagging groceries, whether you're a stay-at-home parent, or whether you handle accounts for a large corporation. The task itself may not on the front of it go, this is how this promotes good for others. In fact, most of especially the larger of a corporation you work for, most of the corporations have segmented tasks out so that you're just focused on the thing you're doing, not how it contributes to anything else. But as Christians, we probably should approach and go, well, I'm spending 8 hours of my day doing a task. Maybe I should have a thought of what's the way God would intend for this task to promote good, and how can I sit and do that? And that may not be as clear, and as we've been saying throughout the whole time, it may not have as big of an impact as other tasks. If I'm a doctor, that task is very clear. If someone's sick, I should help them get well, and that promotes good. If I'm just filing, what's Office Space? What do they call those reports? The TPS reports?
TPS reports.
If I'm filing TPS reports.
Which we don't know what those are.
No one knows what they are, but everyone has something like that in their
right.
job. My job is turning out these reports. I don't necessarily see where that's going to the good of others, but maybe as someone who's thoughtful with God, I should think I'm spending 8 hours here. What can I do with this task? And as we were talking about before, and this is certainly to me much clearer to see, the people I'm around.
That's right.
I've got coworkers around me, right? Or I've got people, clients that I'm serving or customers that I'm interacting with. Now, I guess there are some jobs, we should just say, you might be a work from home medical transcriber, and you don't interact with coworkers that besides emails. I have a lot of people in my life who are work from home people, and they hate when they have to interact with anybody.
That's true.
Which is like, now I got to get on
Chose that job for a reason.
I got to get on a call and they're going to tell me stuff, or I've got an email. So my thought was maybe we could try and have this thought around, and maybe a lot of people have never thought this. Work is a gift. The ability for us to produce good in the world beyond just my good vibes and my thoughts, the fact that we have bodies that can work and that we can build things and create things, that is a gift from God. And it's a good thing we get to be a part of that. So I thought maybe we could give some direction for people who are trying to figure out, they hear us say something, they hear me say something like that and go, not for me. You don't know my life.
I think for me, what's important on that, and you sort of alluded to this, is, you know, if my job is just about the task in front of me, it can very often become maybe discouraging or disillusioned with my real purpose in God's world. And, you know, we always put like just in front of everything. I'm just filing reports, or I'm just making phone calls, or I'm just building a website, or whatever I'm doing. And just that language that we use can often put us in that space where we have a hard time seeing past or seeing above what I'm doing. And we were talking about this earlier, and I used the phrase of, you know, at some point you have to get your eyes above, or get your eyes up off of what you're doing, to see the picture of how might God want to enter into this space, whether it be a physical space or just the work environment that you find yourself in, virtual or non-virtual. And I am, if I know who I am in Christ, I am a image bearer of God. I carry the Spirit of Jesus within me that raised Christ from the dead. Ooh, that's a big deal right there.
Yeah.
Well, if he entered into this space, what might change? What might it look like? What might it sound like? And then when I find out what that might be, how could I participate in this?
Right.
Because that's what I'm supposed to be and do, right?
Yeah.
And that takes some thought. It's not always just an easy answer, you know? It sounds simple, but I don't think it's always that easy, right?
No.
Well, and I would also say to somebody, if they were sitting with me, that I would probably begin with, you know, obviously whatever they're doing. I was thinking about when Nathan was talking about people working at home and whatever they're doing at home, and maybe they don't interact with anybody all day long, and they can totally fulfill their job without ever interacting. If it were me, one, I would probably not try to find my whole purpose in life in that job.
No,
Sure.
That's right.
As a follower of Christ, I would remind myself that I still have the command to love God with all my heart and love people. And I would try to raise my eyes a little bit above that job. So why am I doing this job? Who is ultimately served by doing this job? And it might just be because there are a lot of times jobs are seasonal. You might be a mom that's working a job at home and you don't see much purpose in it, but the purpose is that you get to be at home with your kids.
Yep.
You're making money to help your family. And the sight you have to set on is, how am I loving people by what I'm getting by doing this job for somebody, though I never interact in the actual task of the job. I never I'm thinking about somebody that there's somebody in our church that transcribes the minutes from Congress every day. That sounds like death to me. You know, just the words that they just speak into existence that no one, for most part, will ever hear except this person who's transcribing them. Because most of it's just political nonsense. But I would raise my eyes above that to say, hey, I am a person who likes to give to help people who need food. I love to provide for things. And this job that I am doing, what I get as a benefit of this job gives me the opportunity to accomplish God's purposes in the world. And that gives me a bigger purpose than the task I have in front of me. Because there are a lot of tasks that if you just focus on the task, it might very well grind you. Or I would just say, as I think about them, that it would grind me to if this was all I had to do. But I have a lot of freedom in that time. I'm me and God. I can talk to God. It's a lot of freedom to be able to do that. It's a lot of time for me to just. So I would try to lift my sights of maybe my whole purpose was never about the 8 hours where I have to make money. Our world is organized in such a way that there has to be money, or somebody's going to provide it for me, or I'm going to have to figure that out. So I probably would spend some time on that as well if you're in one of those jobs where you can't directly connect to I do something that I can see the direct connection to the benefit for other people, but you can see that the stuff you get from the job is a direct benefit to people. And that's just as important. A part of the reason we work is to take care of ourselves. This is from the Bible, and to have something to share. I want to provide for myself and for those that I'm responsible for, and so I can have the ability to share. And maybe that's your purpose.
Yeah. Well, and I think there are ways to kind of see. I mean, I think we all would say you should not be finding your purpose in your work. I think and I would say that even as a pastor.
Yeah, that's right.
Because people say that to me all the time of, well, you have a different kind of job because you can see, that's your purpose. It's a little bit of the point of the ending of the sermon I had on this particular Sunday was the call of my life was not to be a minister. This is a task. I do think God has called me to this task and for this season and for this time. And that is important to me. It is helpful to me because there's a lot about this job that is very difficult. And it is important to go.
And more inane than lots of people know.
Yes. Well, because I was thinking about this. Most people would assume that the example you gave of transcribing congressmen, everyone can see that would be the purpose of someone's life, to go into, politics on being a congressman or woman, doing something, president of the United States. But you don't see how the person who transcribes minutes, I don't know if they're looking at this. Now, I know there's government waste, and I don't want to get into all that. Most likely when they originally asked someone to do this job, there is something those minutes are going towards. That is a helpful tool for someone with something. And for us to be able to say, this task I want to do it well, because I do believe somewhere down the line, this is assisting somebody in doing their thing. My daughters have asked me before of so why does anyone even need a job? And I've said that it is true because you got to have money, you got to take care of people, you got to do that. But on an even bigger scale, because when God created us in his image, part of creating us his image was, this is all part of it. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. And then he gave them this part of the image, which was to have dominion over the creation. And he goes, I want you to help rule. The idea that when God created the world, it was perfect is not it was still incomplete.
That's right.
God created that we would build, and the idea that in heaven we'll still be part of this. There is no indication that work just goes away, because in the original image, Adam's working. He's naming animals. For what reason? I'm just taking down minutes of the names. Does God care what Adam names the animals and he's got to name them?
Well, and we know he was farming and taking care of the ground because part of the curse says, now when you do it, it's going to be hard.
It's going to be hard.
That means he was doing it before the fall.
Yeah, the earth is going to not cooperate with you the way it was.
So, And so the way I said it to my daughters is part of what I think is the beauty of as civilization has advanced. Now we can say it might be taken too far to this point, is that I don't have to grow all my own food for myself. Now, I know some of us think we got to get all back to all of us growing our own food. There is a blessing to the fact that I can do a different job that provides goods for someone else. Because when I lived on my own family farm, I had to raise the animals. Me and my family had to raise the animals, till the ground, also probably make our own clothes, do all these things. And slowly over time, what eventually happens is people go, if we let that guy go off and just go make clothes,
Mhm.
I can make the food. We can start trading those
Yeah.
things.
Mhm.
I don't have to just make clothes. They can make clothes. And if this guy started studying medicine when we got sick, we didn't just, so all the jobs get distributed out. And then what people start going is, if I'm going to be the congressman or the doctor, it'd be great if I had someone that I could pay to come in and take these notes and to do these things. Now, eventually, yes, it has gotten down to the place where you work at a manufacturing plant and you feel like all I do is turn this bolt on this thing. And
all I do is make sure you wear your safety vest.
yes, I'm the same.
That's my whole job. I make sure you got your safety vest.
And you feel like whatever until you read history of the way the industrialization was. And suddenly a third of the population didn't have fingers on this hand, so.
That's right.
And you go, all of these things are a part. And so I think regularly about The Patient Ferment of the Early Church, my favorite book I love to mention.
We're always back to that.
I love this book. And he
One
talked.
day I'm going to buy and read that book.
You don't need to.
I'm not.
I've told you half of what's in
That's
the book
right.
at
You
this
have.
point.
If it's not on Audible at this point,
Yeah.
I'm not
doing it.
I'm not doing it.
All right.
He talks about in this book, which I thought was really interesting. He talks about Christian formation within these churches. And imagine what it was to be a slave to a non-Christian master. And then Paul gives these instructions, like everything you do for your master. And he even says, whether they're a good master or a bad master, do it all as if you're doing it for the Lord.
Right.
And he goes, which who knows what tasks these people were asked to do? And Paul goes, you've got to start seeing within this, there is this beautiful thing that the image of God didn't get lost in you because the job you're doing, you don't think matters as much as the guy who's doing this job. The work you do still has value. It still adds something. And the Christian is the one who goes, I get to recontextualize yes, because I've mentioned this. I went to business college. I had a professor said, the only point of a corporation is to maximize shareholder wealth. That is their goal. Mm-hmm. The Christian can have another goal of, yes, I've got to maximize wealth, but I also need to do this in this ethical way, in this honest way, in this gentle way, in this way that is focused on other people's interests, not just my own. And there may not be a way to directly see that in the task. But I do think Christians being able to kind of imbue their work with this meaning of saying Christ is in me, and certainly in my interactions with him. I mean, we can't neglect that. Certainly my interactions inside and outside of work. But also, I would hope in the thing that I'm doing, I can go, hey, I want to do this as if I'm doing it for the Lord. Dallas Willard frequently said the first task of a Christian plumber is just to be a really good plumber. Mm-hmm. It is that their first job is you got to go in and go, someone called me in to fix these pipes. These pipes matter. And it isn't, I got to pray over every pipe.
And wouldn't it be cool if every time a Christian walked into a space, whether it be a department store, a grocery store, a fast food joint,
a plumbing company, whatever, and your very presence there, regardless of whatever love you spread among people, it just became a better run place, or
yes,
a much more quality experience, or a more pleasant experience. That, to me, would in and of itself be a testimony to the presence of God in that space. And I think that's what you're mentioning. That's what you're talking about.
Because Ed mentioned this. There's a lot of being even a pastor that are just inane things.
Sure.
And I'll say, because of this is just my temperament, now in the position I sit, the things I'm naturally drawn towards are I want to sit and study the Bible. I want to go write a sermon. I want to pray for the church. I want to call people and all those things are really important. They're an important part of my job. I don't see as much value in how can I run this meeting more efficiently? How can we keep better spreadsheets to maintain these things? But when you are in an organization, including and maybe especially a church, where none of that is attended to, it affects the ability of other people to do ministry and to do good for other people. And being able to sit and go, all right, for the next hour, I'm going to have to sit here and fill out this spreadsheet I don't want to fill out, and it doesn't seem to matter. But I know down the line, this is producing good for our church and for the lives of people. And no one will be able to point back and go, thank God they kept that spreadsheet.
No, they will not.
No one will know. But I'll know
Yeah,
this
right.
did do something.
Yeah.
And I think for other people, being able to say, this doctor I'm transcribing these notes for, maybe I'm not the one healing the patient, but maybe I sat and I did this thing and I prayed over the.
Well, that would be
notes.
that would be the kind of advice I would encourage someone who comes in after hours when the doctors and the patients and the nurses are all gone and they're cleaning the space.
Right.
You know, what are you doing to promote what's happening in this space? You're providing a space for this to happen. If you didn't do your job, the healing couldn't get done.
Or even
or whatever it is.
I know there's
right?
a woman in our church. I just found out recently that she works and she cleans at one of the local colleges. And I can imagine there are times that you go, it's not even that, because, you know, in a doctor space, you're like, well, if there's germs, people are going to get sick. In this, it's who does it matter how swept the floor or how this was? But you go still to be able to look and say, there are people who are coming here to learn and to develop skills. And I'm helping to enable that. I think part of what it is for the Christian worldview is to start to see that my work isn't about me. And like Ed's already said, it's not my purpose in life. My purpose in life was to love God and to love people and to act justly and love mercy. And so the work doesn't have to say anything about me. The work is one of the ways I'm partnering with God in doing those things, you know, every day in the week.
And I just go back to, unless you're doing something that is criminal
Good point.
or immoral, and you may not be as creative as Nathan to be able to say,
Right.
well, ultimately down the road, here's the 40 steps removed, I'm at a person I'm helping. It doesn't matter if what you get from the job gives you the ability to directly help a person that you couldn't. Like I know, for instance, there's a person that works here that doesn't work here, that goes to our church, and they have two jobs. And one of the jobs they work is to give all the money from that job away. So every moment they're in that particular job, they work for the purpose of giving that, to have something to share. Well, it doesn't really matter what they're doing as long as it's not illegal. They don't have to attach a bigger purpose to what they're doing. What they're doing is providing a pretty big purpose.
Yeah.
So I would say to you, you don't have to be able to figure out, hey, here's the 80 steps between me and a really good purpose. You do need to do whatever you do as if unto the Lord, which means if my boss told me to do it a certain way, even if he's as dumb as grapefruit, I try to do exactly what I agreed to him that I would do. And if I could see other things I could do to improve it, I do that too. I do everything as if Jesus, I don't do less than what he asked just because he would never know. But I don't have to be able to connect it to some ultimate other purpose, because sometimes in our world, that gets really stretched out. It just gets, really far removed from, I plug Ethernet cables in all day long. It just gets stretched out. You know what I'm saying? To find a purpose. And I get why some people really struggle with this. You may need to look at what you're doing with what you get from working.
Well, I think the second thing you said is also important, though, which is ultimately the goal of it is to do everything. Whether I can see how it contributes to good or not doesn't change the fact that I've got to do everything as if I do it for the Lord. I think what ends up happening for many people is, if the end goal of this is for me to get a paycheck, I got to do the bare minimum to get the paycheck. And I think the second thing that you said is the bigger thing, which is I never do less than asked. I can actually do more than what's asked within the healthy boundaries. I don't mean overworking and doing that. I'm just saying, if I'm in a job and the boss says to do it this way, and I think, well, that guy's an idiot and I don't like him, so I'm,
and he'll never know.
Well, and there's a big thing among younger generations, which is the idea of minimum work for minimum pay. So you don't pay me what I think I deserve. You're getting bare minimum work.
Well, what I've always said to, people about when you take a job, no one is hiding from you what you're going to get paid for taking the job.
True.
If you do not want what they are offering to pay, you in this country still can say, no,
Yes.
that's not what I'm worth. But to take the job fully knowing what they said they were going to pay you,
Yeah.
and then living your life with complaint, that is not the character of a follower of Christ.
Exactly. And I think the idea of like I was saying,
I'm not saying you can't ask for a raise. I'm not saying that.
No. No, but I think the idea of even, there's this idea of quiet quitting, which is I stay at the job, but if I don't think it's important, I let it fall to the side. I just take these.
As a person who used to be in charge of people, it ain't very quiet. I'll just tell you.
You notice.
Everybody notices.
But I think that part about the reason I do everything unto the Lord is because I've recontextualized. I'm not doing it because this guy asked me to do it. I'm not doing it because the corporation is some beautiful corporation that's doing wonderful things. I'm doing it because the Lord has given me the ability to work. He has given me a way to contribute. And yes, contribute to my family, all the things you contribute to the family, contribute money to other things. Absolutely. But also contribute energy and effort to things that happen and promote good in the world. And so that second part you said about, even if I can't, no one needs to sit and do the work. That's part of the work I get paid for, is sitting and thinking through creative and poetic imagery and doing all of that to help connect dots for people they can't connect.
I think you said an important part there as well is, and I just about lost it there for a minute, but everything I do as a follower of Christ becomes a mirror of what Christ is doing in me. And if I take a job and I quiet quit, I am not loving God with all my heart. Let's just be really clear. And I am not loving my neighbor who I agreed to do this for. If I don't think I should be working there, then Jesus would have you go quit.
Yes.
And I know that it puts you in a place, or he'd have you change your attitude to the point to say, I'm going to do this with all my heart until I find something better to do. But you're right. There is a degree to which I just need to do it. It changes my character when I can do hard things that I didn't really want to do, but I did them because I said I would.
Yes. And I think there's something too in our current world, and I don't know, just the way things go, this idea of, living for the weekend and all these different kinds of, which is very much the idea, which is I do this job to get a paycheck so I can go live, what's the phrase? I don't live to work, I work to live.
Yeah.
And I go, and I get the ideas behind those things.
Yeah, there's some truth in there.
But you're going to spend a lot of your life working. And the idea that primarily what God is interested in is not the working as well, that God is not also interested in the working. I think Christians have to have a deeper imagination for, even if I can't connect the dots to some future good to someone else, it is producing a good in me. And the work itself, I have to just trust this is producing good for some. No one would pay me for it if it wasn't producing some benefit to something. So I've got to try and figure out for myself, how do I give all of myself to this for this period of time? The 8 hours I'm here and within the boundaries of that thing. That's a part of loving the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind and all your strength, is doing everything as if you're doing it unto the Lord. Because a lot of what the New Testament is trying to get to with these things, we brought up the slave passage, is what was happening in these churches where suddenly people who had been oppressed, women, slaves, the poor, they caught this vision of they had been elevated beyond that. That women had been elevated up. And so you'll see these passages sometimes where it says like, I'm not going to let the women say this. And we look at that and go, some people look at it and go, that's an all time. No woman can ever speak in this. Other people go, well, Paul was just as repressive as everyone else. It's not the point. What had happened was there were slaves that are starting to go, I don't need to work for this guy. This guy ain't a Christian. I don't got to do this because this work don't matter. And then suddenly Paul's coming in going, no, your work still matters. You can't just abandon this.
And then there were slave owners who said, I did follow Jesus, but that didn't affect how I treat slaves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it does.
That
Exactly.
doesn't affect how I treat this guy over here. He's either a Christian or not a Christian. That my Christian life's separate from my business life.
Right.
There is no separate life for those of us who are followers of Christ.
Yes. And so I think for many of us, and that's not our particular conundrum, is whether I am currently a slave or whether a slave owner. But the same principle I think applies, which is I every moment of my life is an opportunity for me to interact with God and say, what good are you doing in the world around me right now? And even if I'm staring at a screen, I have a friend who creates apps and tests apps for financial institutions. And I go, but and a lot of times that work is very draining because there's lots of stuff that goes on. I go, but you showing up every day and saying, I'm giving that my all because I believe down the line, someone who has a need is going to need to get in touch with their financial institution. And if you've ever needed to get information from your financial institution and that page went down and you couldn't access it, it caused more anxiety and stress on you. Being able, and once again, if you can't connect all those dots, that's fine. Taking just the command of, I agreed to do this job, I'm going to do it to my fullest. There is purpose in that itself. There is, because that is God saying, there is a way I want this world to run. There is a way I want things to go. And all of us are to contribute to that as well.
All right. So, as I said last week, if you have more you'd like us to say on that or anything else, link is in the description. Send us a question or comment, statement. We'll riff on it because, as you can see, we took that one little thing. We talked for 31 minutes.
There you go.
So we can do it with just about anything.
Anything.
That's right. So we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.